What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actresses is confronted by a host who refuses to back down from the most controversial question of her career? The answer will leave you speechless. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Helen Mirren made a decision that stunned an entire studio. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment, because this story gets more intense with every moment. It began like any other Tuesday morning interview. Helen Mirren sat across from morning show host Rebecca Chen, the soft glow of studio lights framing a calm, familiar setting. The conversation flowed easily. Her new film, her creative process, her thoughts on modern cinema. Everything was poised, polite, predictable. Then, without warning, the air shifted. "Helen," Rebecca said, her tone sharpening. "There's been a lot of discussion online about your comments from that interview 3 weeks ago, where you seem to suggest that younger actresses today lack the dedication of your generation." Helen straightened. The faintest tension flickered behind her composed expression. "I think you're mischaracterizing what I said," she replied evenly. "I was talking about craft, about the years of theater work that once grounded a performer before stepping in front of a camera." Rebecca didn't flinch. "But the way you phrased it, many people felt it was dismissive. Some even called it gatekeeping. Don't you think that's a fair criticism?" The room grew still. Helen's smile tightened. The warmth in her tone began to cool. "What's unfair," she said, "is twisting someone's words to manufacture outrage. I've spent 50 years in this industry. I've earned the right to speak from experience." "Of course," Rebecca said smoothly. "But with influence comes responsibility. Don't you think your words could discourage young women trying to break in?" Helen's hand gripped the arm of her chair. "Are you suggesting I censor myself to avoid hurt feelings? Because if that's journalism now, we're in trouble." "I'm suggesting accountability," Rebecca replied. "When your words carry weight, examining their impact matters." The tension thickened. Producers exchanged glances behind the cameras. "Accountability?" Helen repeated, her voice cutting through the air like glass. "Let me tell you about accountability, Rebecca. It's working for years in repertory theater for nothing. It's learning every aspect of performance before anyone knows your name. Accountability isn't asking the world to bend because you're impatient." "But Helen," Rebecca countered, "the industry's changed. Streaming, social media, new pathways to success. Shouldn't we accept that the path looks different now?" "Different, yes," Helen said. "Easier, no. Somewhere along the way, people decided talent was enough without the work. That's the illusion I'm criticizing." Rebecca glanced at her notes, steady but shaken. "No one's saying work doesn't matter. But when you dismiss the new ways actors find opportunities, isn't that short-sighted?" Helen's eyebrow lifted sharply. "Rebecca, I've been acting since before you were born. I've watched this business evolve, some of it brilliant, some of it terrifying. What's short-sighted is assuming that new automatically means better, or that tradition automatically means obsolete." The air turned electric. Rebecca shifted, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "I'm not saying either. I'm just suggesting your view might seem outdated to some." "And I'm suggesting," Helen cut in, "that this interview return to the film I came here to discuss, unless the goal is to turn me into your villain of the week." Rebecca hesitated, then doubled down. "Helen, our viewers want real conversations. They want to hear your honest thoughts on these issues." Helen let out a cold laugh. "Real conversation? Is that what we call it when a guest is ambushed with a pre-written narrative? You invited me here to talk about my work, and instead, you're trying to frame me as out of touch." "That's not what I'm doing," Rebecca insisted. "Yes, it is," Helen said flatly. "You've twisted my comments about craft into an attack on an entire generation. That's not journalism, Rebecca. That's manipulation disguised as engagement." The words hit like a slap. Rebecca's professionalism cracked for just a moment. "Helen, I'm asking legitimate questions raised by young actresses who felt hurt by your remarks. Which actresses? Helen demanded, leaning forward. Name them. If their feelings are your evidence, let's hear who they are. I can't reveal sources, Rebecca stammered. Sources? Helen's voice rose, incredulous. Sources for being offended? That's what we're calling gossip now? Rebecca's cheeks flushed. You know your platform carries weight. When you generalize, it has impact. And you know, Helen countered, that twisting context to force conflict is exactly the kind of gotcha journalism destroying real conversation in this industry. Rebecca's restraint broke. I resent that accusation. These are fair public questions. Public? Helen scoffed. You mean social media comments? Anonymous posts? That's your new standard for legitimacy? Social media is where the public speaks now, Rebecca replied quickly. Ignoring it would be irresponsible. And elevating it to gospel truth, Helen snapped, isn't responsible. It's lazy. The room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The crew froze. No one dared breathe. Rebecca steadied herself. There's nothing lazy about giving voice to people who didn't have one before. And there's nothing noble, Helen shot back, about treating every opinion as equal, regardless of experience or fact. When did experience automatically make someone right? Rebecca fired back. That stopped everything. The question hung heavy, sharp, unfiltered. Helen went still. Her eyes locked on Rebecca, glacial and unblinking. When she spoke, her voice was calm, measured, and furious. Are you seriously asking me when experience became valuable? When years of work stopped meaning something? When dedication stopped earning respect? Rebecca's face paled. Helen, I didn't mean— Yes, you did, Helen interrupted. That's exactly what you meant. Because that's the story you came here to write. The old guard trying to hold back progress, Rebecca said, her voice rising just enough to cut through the silence. The established star who's lost touch with the modern world. Isn't that the narrative? Helen's eyes flashed. Oh, that's the story you want, isn't it? Her voice grew stronger, sharper. Because it's easier than actually listening. Because it fits neatly into your headline. That's not true, Helen. Then what is true, Rebecca? Helen shot back. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here? If your goal is to make me look foolish, you're failing. If it's to make yourself look like a serious journalist, you're failing even more spectacularly. The words landed like a slap. Rebecca's face went pale, then flushed crimson. Helen, I think we need to take a step back. Why? Because you're not getting the reaction you wanted? Because I'm not playing along with your little performance? At some point, Helen had stood up. No one could say when, but now she was fully upright, commanding the space. Rebecca remained seated, her tone turning defensive. Helen, I'm doing my job. I'm asking the questions that need to be asked. Your job? Helen echoed, incredulous. Your job is to ambush guests with social media outrage and call it journalism? To twist words, provoke reactions, and act surprised when people defend themselves? If that's what journalism is now, then this profession is in worse shape than I thought. I'm not twisting anything, Helen. I'm quoting you directly. No, Helen said coldly. You're quoting other people's interpretations of what I said, and presenting them as my words. There's a difference, Rebecca, though apparently that distinction is lost on your generation of journalists. That hit hard. Rebecca stood abruptly, anger breaking through her composure. My generation? Really, Helen? You're going to go there? I'll go wherever this conversation leads, Helen replied, her voice steady but dangerous. Because you're the one who made it personal. You're the one who decided my decades of experience are somehow a liability. That my perspective is invalid, because it doesn't align with whatever trending hashtag you read this morning. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you implied, Helen cut in. You came here with your angle already written. The out-of-touch actress versus the bold young journalist. A perfect controversy to boost your ratings. Rebecca's mask cracked completely. You think this is about ratings? You think I enjoy this? I think you wanted this, Helen said. You wanted me to react. You wanted me to get defensive so you could paint me as difficult. But here's your problem. I'm not following your script. There is no script, Helen. These are legitimate concerns from real people. Name one, Helen demanded. One real person who said they were offended by my comments. Not anonymous posts. Not vague sources. Name someone willing to stand by what they said. Rebecca faltered. You can't, can you? Helen pressed. Because they don't exist. What exists are outrage machines and click-hungry sites, and journalists like you willing to feed them. I am not manufacturing anything, Rebecca shot back. These are real conversations happening in real time. Real conversations? Helen laughed bitterly. No, Rebecca. The real issue is that we've created a culture where experience is suspect, expertise is elitist, and opinions born from hard work are treated as threats. You call that progress? I call it regression. That's not what this is about. It's exactly what this is about, Helen thundered. You've decided that if my view discourages someone, it must be wrong. Well, let me tell you, discouragement builds character. Struggle teaches skill. Pretending everyone's opinion carries the same weight. That's not kindness. That's condescension dressed up as progress. Rebecca's professional mask was cracking now, emotions seeping through. So young actors should just accept that they don't matter? They should accept that they have things to learn, Helen fired back. Like we all did. Like I did. We didn't expect the world to validate us every step of the way. The world's changed, Helen. Yes, it has, Helen said coldly. And not all of it for the better. Some of it's progress. Some of it's decay wrapped in applause. Her voice was rising again, trembling with conviction. And when someone dares to point that out, you call them outdated, bitter, or worse. You ambush them because experience doesn't fit the narrative. I never said experience was a dirty word. You didn't have to, Helen shot back. You've implied it since the moment I sat down. My perspective, my experience, none of it matters unless it flatters the sensibilities of 20-year-olds on Twitter. That's your truth, isn't it? That's not fair, Helen. Fair? Helen's laughter was sharp and disbelieving. You want to talk about fair? What's fair about twisting my words, turning respect for craft into contempt for youth, and calling it journalism? What's fair about ambushing a guest who showed up in good faith? What's fair about prioritizing anonymous outrage over real dialogue? The studio was dead silent. Cameras rolled, but no one moved. Even the crew was frozen. Rebecca took a shaky breath. Helen, I think we both need to calm down. Maybe take a break. No. Helen's voice was ice. No breaks. You started this, Rebecca. And now that it's uncomfortable, you want to retreat? That's not professionalism. That's cowardice. I'm not being cowardly, Rebecca protested. I'm trying to keep this civil. Civil? Helen laughed again, her tone cutting. You ambush me on live television, twist my words, and now you want civil? You can't light a fire and then complain about the smoke. Rebecca's voice trembled. I never meant for this to get so— Yes, you did, Helen interrupted, her tone final. Because confrontation gets clicks, drama gets shares, and making me look unreasonable makes you look brave. But here's the truth, Rebecca. You miscalculated. You thought I'd sit here and smile while you tried to turn me into a villain. You thought wrong. Rebecca's last attempt came out barely steady. Our viewers tune in for honest conversations about difficult topics. Helen's response cut through her like glass. No, they tune in for spectacle. And today, Rebecca, you got one.